Good afternoon, everybody. I see that a lot of people are out. I think we're still not at lunchtime, are we? But people seem hungry, it seems. Anyways, we have a panel out here. I would request each of you to say a couple of sentences about yourselves, what you do, and introduce yourselves. I am JP Biswas. I run a boutique consulting agency in Mumbai. So over to you.
Hi, I'm Abhishek Trehan. We're into real estate primarily, and we build high street malls in NCR and down south in Bangalore by the name of Iris Broadway.
Hello again, Chaitanya from Slay Coffee. We are India's homegrown, fastest growing coffee brand. We started our journey as 100% online cafe. Now we are expanding into offline with Grab and Go. We have our presence across 15 cities and 160 locations. Happy to share our experience.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. This is Amit Sharma. I'm from Miraj Cinemas. We run this Miraj Cinemas chain across 14 states of the country and 35 cities. We are the fifth largest in terms of number of screens. We operate 151 screens, and of course, in this market also we are looking for an aggressive expansion.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. This is Bidyut Bhanjdev. I work for Raymond Apparel Limited. I head sales, LFS and e-commerce business for the brand.
Hi, my name is Rajiv Nair. First of all, absolutely happy to see people in conferences physically, because over the last 1.5 years we've been kind of trying to connect with each other only online. So this is a fantastic experience. I actually head Kaya as the group CEO. We run dermatology centers across India and in the Middle East. So we are into the cosmetic dermatology space. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Samir. Similar business like Rajiv, but much smaller. I run a French enterprise called Jean-Claude Begin, popularly known as JCB Salons, primarily a 3-city operation, Bombay, Bangalore, and Pune. Happy to see physical faces here.
Hello, good morning everyone. I'm Subodh Mehta, representing Godrej Interio, a home furniture brand. We have a pretty widespread presence all across India, almost more than 500 stores. At the same time, we have now decent online presence, so it's like an omni-channel presence. And wherever you want to buy from, you can get a nice, well-designed, aesthetically pleasing furniture.
Okay, so we are done with the introductions. We have a diverse panel here. We have in beauty, in cinemas, we have a developer as well. So we will have various different views from these industries. So as you all would know, and it has been talked about so much, the effect of COVID in the operations of all these industries. Everyone has been affected in some way or the other. So it will be very interesting to know how all these industries have been affected and what are your views about it. So Abhishek, please.
Of course, COVID has been really hard on us, each and every one of us. In terms of going out, everything is affected, from retail to malls to salons to, of course, cinemas, hospitality. But I think we're getting ahead of the down curve. We've all witnessed a really nice Diwali season, a very good season to follow now, hopefully for the marriages and Christmas, New Year's. So I think we're jumping back, and hopefully we just have our fingers crossed that There is not another wave. And what we've noticed now is that people are primarily yearning to go out, yearning to experience, get out of their houses, have an outing, may it be to the cinema or eating out. The way the numbers are coming from F&B are great.
So I want to ask, as a developer, has it really changed the way you are thinking ahead, given the current scenario? Do you think it is going to last for long? How is it going? Is it changing in any way your thought process in how you are going about developing your properties?
We are developing high street hybrid centers. So we have a mix of a mall and a high street. So what we try and do is give the whole mall experience through anchors, cinema, entertainment, big footfall creators, and the convenience of reaching there through convenient surface parking, through drop-off points directly into the anchors, and open areas, the atriums, and very low maintenance so that brands can survive even during downturns or pandemics. So we're concentrating primarily on building high street hybrid malls. So that's our idea, and obviously I think it's become kind of way of working to keep hygiene, to educate people, and throughout keep a nice COVID protocol. So yeah.
How about you, Chaitanya? Sorry.
So I think in the last panel, we spoke at length about the impact of COVID on food and beverages. So I'm going to keep it short. It's definitely a very transformational impact of COVID on the F&B industry. A lot of new opportunities have come. The traditional model sort of was tested. And I think a lot of that is going to stay in terms of either the customer behavior or how brands we have reacted and sort of evolved. In terms of how we see it going forward, there will be obviously a good mix of online, offline. And also customers are going to expect a lot more in terms of overall experience, how brands are building on the experiences of what happened in the last couple of years. And it's going to kind of stay the course. And we also are looking a lot more about the insights that we have gotten and how do you bake them in for the long term.
Amit?
I think cinema exhibition industry is the worst affected industry, just not in India, but globally. And it was really past, very, very difficult past 19 months. Just not in terms of cash losses, cash flow, retaining talents. It was really very, very difficult time. Very depressing time, I would say, because there are a lot of trade pundits have actually written of this industry. Cinema has become a completely a point where people will never come back to cinemas. That's the kind of talks which were there across the globe. But happy to say that, we have used this entire 19 months, thinking what to be done. I mean, how we actually enhance our experience for the customers. We spend a lot of time training our team members. So we retained all that people. We spent a lot of time training them so that, once we are back, once we have the contents coming in, we can actually give those kind of services, and we can actually look at to serve our consumers once again with utmost hygiene, with utmost, you can say, with offering a lot of more F&B products to them and all of that. So there's a lot of things which has gone into discussion for last 19-20 months. But yes, if I say today, there are a lot of green shoots which is down south, which is in Punjab, and specifically after Suryavanshi in Diwali, there are a lot of green shoots visible in Western market also. So happy to say that in certain parts of the country, we have almost reached to pre-pandemic business, which is Punjab specifically. But yes, Delhi abhi thodi dur hai, because we just do not, I mean, our primary product is basically content. So it is just not the exhibitors who are screening the content, but at the same time give a lot of confidence back to the content maker. That's actually something which we are doing. So that they are holding back their films and releasing it now. And we see that in next 1 to 2 quarters, we will be, it will be fantastic numbers we will be seeing because of the kind of content which is there.
Great, great.
So Raymond being a primarily offline stores retail company, we got very hardly hit in the first wave. Around Diwali, I think last year things started to look up a little bit, but then the second wave hit us again. And so we did a lot of things to really come out of it. So one, we upped our ante in the entire e-commerce play, where we almost doubled our sales in the last 1 year. Primarily, where we saw that since customers were sitting at home, all shopping was happening on e-commerce websites. Two, there were a lot of trend changes which happened. Like people went from formals to casuals because you're all working from home. You need casual wear, you need more athleisure. So we sold more of track pants than we sold suits ever.
Do you think that will be a trend going forward, or is that a temporary, post-COVID?
Athleisure as a trend is always there. It's been catching up since quite some time. And every brand of significance has launched an athleisure line.
Yeah.
And people are using for different purposes. I mean, they're using it more for travel. I mean, you're taking a long flight, there's nothing more comfortable than a track pant to wear. Yep. There's a lot of style element coming into that. They're no longer pure functional. There is stylized stuff which is coming in. So it's going to be there, it's going to stay. And the overall casualization we have seen across now. See, no one is wearing a tie anymore.
So the complete man is going to look different now.
No, it'll stay complete, but maybe it'll look different now. So one was the entire e-commerce play, which really helped us during this period to stay afloat and keep the ship going. But happy to see that this festive, when things have started opening up, we've recovered the entire business. I mean, we are actually growing over 2019.
Wow.
So that's a very heartening fact. And a lot of marriages got postponed. And see, Raymond or apparel brands per se is very led by marriages. And Indian marriages are, people buy like there's no end to it. So we see that till the first quarter, when marriage dates are strong, we should still see a good recovery coming in. And I also have seen that in the last 1 year, the entire e-commerce journey has jumped 5 years. Because everybody has become so efficient in that space. Everybody is playing in that space. And that's one channel which is going to stay. And somewhere we also have managed to use that to our advantage, the entire online platform, to get people into our stores.
What about offline? Have you done anything differently during COVID and now?
Yeah, so offline, we've done a lot of stuff. One, what we did is, everybody did it in fact. Sales happened through video calling.
Yeah.
I mean, you have your customer, your loyal customer numbers, you call them up, you have a video call with them, show them garments, and if they're okay with it, you have to have it delivered. Two, we have also jumped the thing and got into omni-channel play, where all our inventory is visible on all our marketplaces. Wow. So therefore, it's like a endless aisle for us. Whatever is in our store is also available online. You can buy it from there, it'll get delivered to your place. And the last important thing which we did is we have started something where we have really asked people, so what do you do when you want to buy something? The first thing you do is go online and search for it.
Yeah.
So you can book an appointment, and if it's your marriage or whatever function, there's a designer who's assigned to you. You do a first call, which is a video call with him. If you like it, then you go to a store, and that then converts into a sale. So we sort of use the entire online platform to bring a customer back into the store. So that's something very different that we've done.
Oh. Great. Rajiv, your insights, please.
Yeah, I think, it's been about 1.5 years we've been attending seminars or conferences, all of us as either participants or listeners. And I think we've heard a lot about COVID, and the first 6 months was all about intense activity. I think a lot of the industry came together, everybody collaborated, participated. I hope it's not the end of the world. Let's work together and get something done. So I think from high ambiguity to the second wave, which is informed ambiguity, is where the phasing has happened. The second phase, I think all of us were better prepared mentally that the disruption will happen. There will be a cycle to this disruption, and we are better prepared. The third wave, while of course people don't want to wish that it happens, but it could happen, but I think we are even better prepared. I think that's the kind of phase that all of us have gone through. But I think one of the biggest initial priorities for all of us, I think as industry, was people, both our own employees, because this is the first time I think we have seen life-threatening issues closer home. We have seen employees getting impacted, families getting impacted, some close near ones, in hospitals, some deaths. I think it's been a very terrible, first phase. Second phase was even more complicated because of lack of infrastructure that we had built. So that was, I think, an area. So I think our first priority was take care of the employee. We are a medical company in that sense because we have almost 100 doctors working with us. So our understanding of this disease started way back, I would say January or December of the year 2019. And then as the progressive, the impact started, I think we were getting highly prepared. We started constituting safety committees and safety meetings way back before the actual pandemic March-April period started. And even till today, every week I spend 1 hour on a safety meeting where we are saying how the protocols need to change as the scenario keeps changing. So that's one thing that has happened. The other important thing also was mental health challenges, maybe for customers as well as for employees, because to some extent, I think customers are also getting impacted sitting at home for months together and with all the negative news all over. So we reached out to a lot of customers physically by calling them up, in some cases doing over Zoom calls and team calls. But we at least would have reached in the first phase about 40,000 customers physically called in to tell them that we are there. And most of those calls were not business calls, more to do with their well-being. So that's one bit. Employees also, we managed to ensure that vaccination got done very early. So at least all employees, almost 90 to 93% of our employees who were eligible for vaccination have taken their second vaccination. So that's an area which is there. So I'm saying, why am I, emphasizing on this is, I think is one of the largest healthcare challenges that we ever seen and maybe will ever see in our lifetime. So I think that was one big area that, I think we emphasized and focused. In the clinics, we upped our ante in terms of the safety protocols to a very large extent. I think even today, I think we are probably one of the few people who work with complete PPE gear while serving customers, even today. Wow. And we have said, it's time to save some costs, we could remove it. But I think it's still too risky at this stage to do physical contact services without proper PPE gears. So we will plan to continue it till we know that the third wave doesn't come and hit us again. So that's one thing which is there. So there are about 60 protocol changes that we actually did. We did a lot of communication called Kaya Safe on social media so that our customers know about it. We did a lot of contactless facilities for customers, right up from checking into the clinics, fixing appointments, sometimes sending them protocols of what needs to be done and stuff like that. The other thing that we realized is the fact that collaboration is key. And I think Samir and me and a few others from the industry, at least 30, 40 of us in the beauty wellness segment got together. And I think we had frank conversations about how to approach this problem on a weekly basis. I think we would have probably connected twice a week for almost 3, 4, 5 months. I think as late as a few months ago, we were connecting almost every week to try and say the fact that how do we cope up? Our people challenges are similar. We are a high people industry. So I think we need to also take care of our policies, procedures are well taken care of. That is there. The other thing is, of course, digital and other media became I think what we all said, I think it leapfrogged. Our need for enabling the business through digital actually increased. We are still work in progress, but a lot of changes have happened. To the extent that we came up with newer innovations during this particular period. So for example, while our doctors typically like to do physical consultations by talking and viewing customers, now we have created an AI-based application which can almost do predictive outcomes on the services that we do. We are currently in the stage of pilot, about 20 clinics have actually gone in. We also launched a new D2C site. Very soon you will see that customers can evaluate their own skin on the system, and it will give you predictive outcomes of what type of services you should take or what kind of products you should actually buy. We also, I think, put a lot of, I would say, energy, effort, money behind improving our core stack of technology at the back end, because if we want to create something like a headless commerce with a lot of integrations, we need to have our core system strong. So I think right from the D2C system to our core stack, I think we managed to change. So that's there. Last but not the least, I think we also look for a lot of collaborations. So today our product, our services are actually available on the CureFit app. We actually met with Mukesh Bansal and team at some point last year. And we said the fact that, you know, since they are in the health and wellness space, is there a way to collaborate? Now our services are available in 5 cities on the CureFit app. So their customers have in some form become our customers and our customers become their customers. I think that's an area that we actually worked on. So I think a lot of small initiatives, a lot of thinking, as we said, you know, like a lot of time for us to introspect and look at our business differently. I think that's the journey for the last 1.5 years.
Yeah, that's great. Sameer.
Well, I think, let me say, lighten up the mood a little. I think we, as salon operators, faced a lot of competition from each one of you in the room, right? Where every wife, every mother became a hairdresser during those 4 or 5 months of lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
But I think, like Rajiv and fellow panelists have said, a lot of opportunities came up. So while we are a very small operation, but I think we're a prestige business in the cities that we operate in. So our consumer is the upper SECA profile. Who would never imagine a service coming home? So we actually took the salon home, you know. So people would think that salon services at home were more for the price conscious people, but it was not true.
And how did you manage the health?
Well, there are a certain list of services that you can do. You can't do everything. So you've got to be very frank and upfront saying that, I'm sorry, we'll not be able to do certain services. But I think hygiene services, especially for beauty, for women, and haircuts for kids or for men, was something that we were very easily able to do. And the consumer trusted us because hygiene and safety has always been one of our pillars and fundamentals of JCB. And that's why the consumer... We are a premium service, but I think that's where the consumer prefers coming to us and says that, look, I am a little mentally comfortable coming to you because I know you will charge me and you will also demonstrate that safety and hygiene. So we took the salon home, I think, and that's always been, we're always doing this business, but we found large amount of progress, large amount of sales happening as far as taking the salon home is concerned. We were never an e-commerce business because I think all of us know the blockbuster Nykaa, which has just debuted yesterday. And of course, Amazon. So I think I leaned upon, and I'd just like to, you know, compliment Rajiv here. And when he said that, you know, a lot of collaboration happened. So while we were former colleagues, but, and we don't compete with each other, but I think I leaned upon him, and he gave me insight of a company which helped us build a complete WhatsApp for business. Business model for us, and I think that's giving us great insights, great revenues. We also put together in the second lockdown a quick and dirty e-commerce model, though we are only a 3-city operation, I keep reiterating. But because the consumer was not coming in, almost 30-35% footfalls are still not coming to the salon. Frequency droppage is very high. Women who used to come twice a month are now coming maybe once a month kind of thing. So there's still a little apprehension. But I think shampooing or using cosmetics has not dropped. In fact, it has improved. So we said that we will take the salon home. So a little e-commerce business was born. And I think some very, very good achievements in the last 7-8 months that we've done. So those are some of the positives that the business has thrown up. Of course, the business model has got completely re-engineered. I'll be very honest, yes, we've had to have layoffs. I mean, almost about 20% workforce has been laid off, salary corrections have happened because we had to keep the business afloat. We were not getting any funding, extra funding, but we managed to not burn capital. We didn't end up shutting any store. So 21, in fact, we've just opened one store which is overdue at the Geo Mall. So about 21 stores stay alive. But yes, definitely business model has got re-engineered totally. And I think in a way it is good because otherwise, we would never have been pushed or jolted out of our, comfort zone. Yeah?
True.
Thanks.
Yeah, so I think a lot of it has already been said. So obviously the economic downturn was very steep. But I think it was also a function of how the companies responded, as somebody said we were better prepared, but how the government also responded. So, some data, of course, we know that wave 2 was 4 times more severe than wave 1. But the economic downturn was actually almost twice better than the wave 1 because I think many of the stores remained open at least some time of the week in some of the states during wave 2. Though it was pretty bad. So I think how government responded to COVID is basically has a direct correlation with economic activities rather than COVID per se, and we have seen it in other countries also.
How has your business reacted, responded?
Yeah. So coming to that, so obviously, I mean, during COVID, what has happened? Digital adoption really went up substantially high. So if you look at our category, which is actually low frequency purchase, high involvement and high ticket. So people don't buy quite often, but when people buy, at least they come to the store 3 to 4 times. It's a 1.5, 2 lakhs kind of a purchase. And you don't buy furniture, every time. So people are pretty careful about, so people will make a lot of physical visits. Now what has happened? The in-person discussion got replaced by the virtual discussion. And very simple video platforms were used. Just take the WhatsApp itself. The two people in the store will take the customer through the complete store through WhatsApp. Yeah. They will explain everything about, say, sofa set, bedroom, etc. So that was a big change. And big change was the customer was ready to accept. So we didn't have to nudge or work very, very hard to let them, sort of convince, look, you can see things on WhatsApp also. You don't have to come. So to that extent, I think some of it is going to remain now. Suppose the distance is very high. So some guy will say, okay, let me basically do a virtual discussion at least, first and second time, then we'll see. So if 3 to 4 times visit was required to finalize a home furniture purchase, it got now reduced to 1 to 2 times. Digital adoption would not just mean buying online, but there are a lot of other, factors also. In a sense, consuming the content on digital, right? Going for, large amount of search online. So people would, suppose about 40 to 50% people were searching online before coming to the store. Now almost 75 to 80% people are searching. So when they come to the store, they would have already done a lot of homework. They already has a great knowledge. And more often than not, they are able to finalize in that one visit itself.
Has it also led to some kind of a democratization in terms of the goods? Say, means you no longer are, say, Godrej per se. There are like 10 other alternatives which people are searching and finding as good or maybe
So on the contrary, I think the brand which are authentic and honest are getting, I think, better response. Yeah. See, even for physical visits, I mean, many customers said, I came to Godrej because we believe they will take care of all the COVID-related, precautions very carefully. And they will be quite authentic. So a simple thing like I am vaccinated badge is basically giving confidence to the customer. So we'll just give that badge to all our salespeople. We will also say, let us come based on the appointment. We don't want to create a crowd. Mm-hmm. So we'll fix up an appointment, and therefore we can restrict the number of people who are coming at one particular time. So all those factors also work quite a lot, besides, of course, the standard protocol which everybody had to follow in the COVID. So to that extent, I think obviously a lot of, so that this brand was definitely respected there. And when you are not very sure, and you are trying to possibly do the online transactions also, you would prefer a more sort of trusted brand because there's always a worry about, something going wrong. So to that extent, I would say the authenticity, honesty, transparency is what coming to the brand again, and those things are getting important for the brand again. And of course, there were some category benefits also. For example, it's quite obvious that work from home furniture,
Yeah.
people started buying like nobody business, right? So during that period, everybody chair, table, I mean the online, so we made those arrangements in the online who didn't want to come. And even if people will come to the stores, whenever it is open, people will talk first about chair and table chahiye bhai, quickly.
Great.
So obviously, those things also, I think, happen. Now, a lot of it will remain. So I would say the economic recovery was also very steep. At least our category, faced that. Possibly there is a pent-up demand and whatever you can say that. And the fact remains that people are spending more time at home. So people are able to see everything with a magnifying glass. So now people want a better sofa because they are spending now 6 to 7 hours at times watching TV. Earlier, they would spend possibly 1 hour, so they want a comfortable sofa. Now, the men of the house possibly never looked at every corner of the house, started looking it. They never cooked. So they went to the kitchen and they have new ideas. Children have new ideas now. So to that extent, also things change. People started saying, yeah, we should also buy, we can change this, we can make this. So to that extent, people, and obviously the fact that you can't travel, you can't go out, so whatever savings are there for a middle class who did not have any problem with respect to their income. I understand some of the classes, the income got affected, but many of the people, income did not get affected, so for them there is a saving. And therefore, the home purchases also went up. So I think it was quite an interesting thing, great learning. Definitely the new normal is going to be different, but it's like changes were happening, but they got accelerated. There was new learning, and a lot of companies have converted this crisis into opportunity. To that extent, I think we can always look forward to a brighter future if you look at the response in October, November, etc. Not only for the category like us, but also difficult categories like, the theater and possibly the saloon, etc., where the physical contact is. I'm sure things will sort of come back to normal pretty quickly.
Kumar, what do you think? How is business getting affected because of COVID? And what are you into?
Yes, I think when the COVID started, no one was prepared for that, for sure, right? And initially, everyone was, looking at each other, what to do, first 6 months. Till we can understand what changes are going on, everyone, suddenly we see, a big stone which we can't see the other side of it, right? So, yes, everyone was, in a dilemma. The sudden stoppage was there in the early, first 6 months. Luckily, we are not, we are a tech company, and into the fintech, we survived.
Okay, so I'll quickly move on to, I'm sorry, I'll quickly move on to how do you think the digital, so one thing is established now, the online part or the digital part is becoming a significant part of your businesses. So how do you feel that this is going to affect your business? How do you feel that the digital is going to help people come back into the stores? How important now is offline? And basically your views on how you are going to bring back people into the stores. So I'll start with, Kumar, please.
So now, by now, everyone is convinced that we have to be digital, right? So there is no, other way around. But, and probably everyone who is sitting in the room, right, having some level of digital, someone is doing pretty good, someone have tried, doesn't work, but still trying, right? But if I have a very basic question to ask, what is the wallet share between your own identity, your digital presence versus the marketplace? The business that you get from the marketplace versus the business that you get from your own e-commerce platform. Your own e-commerce would be not beyond 10, 15, 25%. If you are able to get it right now, is wonderful. Right? So we have to understand, like, this marketplace is going to be the competitor in whatever segment we are in, right? So they are not going to be a true partner for lifelong. So in the FMCG, people have seen, people have burned their hands, right? The marketplace is coming to the segment, the price segment that people, a brand can't think of, right? Getting a, 42-inch TV at around 18,000 LCD TV, right? And the same things is going to happen in every sector, So it's a high time for the brands who have got the consumers, the loyal consumers, to think of getting directly to the customers. But when we want to go directly to the consumers, the biggest challenge that we have, I can build an app, fancy app, but how many of the consumers are going to install it? Okay. Right? In India, we have an obsession of the memory. So everyone thinks, यार ये app install करेंगे तो मेरा memory खत्म हो जाए. So we don't do it, right? So we don't. For every segment we buy, we have maximum 2 app, not beyond that. Even if it is there, we never open it.
Bidut, your views, marketplace versus the brand. That's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, see, couple of things which we realized is that when people today want to buy something, they first look online for it. I mean, be it a shadi ka suit or be it a car, you first go and look at online and see what are the reviews. And today there's a lot of content available there which is done by experts. Yeah. So if you go to Car Dekho, for example, you will have experts who will give you a review about a new launch. And then you will get a comparison across models. And there itself you can book a test drive. So when we learned this, we realized that there's no point in trying and creating your own app because you spend tons of money trying to advertise and make it popular. But there's a huge marketplace which is available. How can you make your inventory visible there? Now, one is the entire discounted inventory and the entire discounts which is happening today in the online space. But there's also a lot of value based pricing which is happening there. Now, for example, our entire stores are today online, visible at all the key marketplace portals. Mm-hmm. Now there we don't offer discounts. Now you want a good white shirt, you realize white shirts are never on discount, by the way. So you want a good white shirt, you will look at a brand, you look at it, you look at the reviews, and if they are good, you'll buy it. Even if it's a little costly, even if the discount is only 10%. Yeah. Now we are seeing a good 6 to 8% of our EBO business coming through these omni-channel, which is one proof in the pudding that yes, it's not only discounted material which sells there. Marketplace can help you create visibility for your products which are not discounted also.
So how important is it going to be for you to bring people into the physical stores? And how is digital going to help you?
So one of the things which we did is when we realized that there is an online search happening, and this is an insight which I think everybody had, and more so during the pandemic, people were looking more online because they had all the time in the world. So we created something where if you're looking for marriage shopping, we called it Shubharam. You are encouraged to look into that app. You are encouraged to visit myraymond.com. Moment you go there, you see that you can actually book an appointment with a designer. And that designer then actually, once you book that appointment, it's free of cost. The designer, he or she comes on a video call and actually designs for you and tells you what you should wear for your marriage. Looking into what your would-be bride is going to wear. And if you really like what the guy is telling you, then you could take it forward, and that's when you go to a store to actually see. You can't see the colors on the screen, no matter how good resolution you have. So then you go for the look and feel and your measurements, you are then encouraged to come into a store. And we have seen a good success there. So from booking an appointment to coming to a store, we have seen around a 40% productivity. So 40% of the consumers who booked an appointment, they came into our stores. And the moment they came into our store, our conversion was more than 80%. Very few people who walked into a store actually walked out. And the designer is actually not on our payrolls. And what we tell them is that the more you upsell, you get a percentage of commission. So what the designer smartly does is the moment he finishes with the groom, he says, "Aapka pitaji kya pehnenge? What will your uncle wear? What is your cousin wearing? How many brothers are you? What are they going to wear?" Now, you're talking to a designer, and that guy, you're already overawed with his skills. So you keep on getting more and more customers from the same family. So we thought that this is one smart way where we're using digital to help people to walk into our stores, come into our stores. Yeah. And at some point of time, we also feel that we'll take Omni to a level where you can book a product online and actually go and pay at the store and pick it up. because you would still want to have a look at the product. Look and feel is very important in fashion. Or you can actually go to a store and try it out. And if there are alterations, you can do that. So that's where we think the digital will really help us to get people back into the stores.
Amit, now this is a tricky kind of a thing for you. Now, for you, how do you think that people will, get hooked onto digital and then they will come onto your Plexus?
I'm feeling very odd man out actually because see everyone owns their own product. I mean whether it is comes to beauty to retail product to furniture, everything. I think me and Abhishek, we are basically a brick and mortar kind of people, and we have to rely on people coming back to cinemas. And unfortunately, we do not have any other option. So digitally, if you'll ask me, people have always looked at and specifically spoke about OTT in last 19 months, 20 months, that OTT is gonna kill cinema exhibition business. So, I mean, of course, in a shorter term, it was really a pain for us. But if you look at from a mid to a long-term perspective, I look at the other way around. I look at the OTT is gonna help us grow the business. Though we don't have because I believe that we do not have a direct competition with the OTT. Reason being, OTT is actually a long form of watching the content. Cinema is actually a 4 hours journey. I mean, you go to a neighborhood mall, just be there, watch the film, you are out with your family. OTT is more personal movie watching experience, whereas cinema is actually community movie watching experience. I mean, if you ask yourself, friend, colleague, anyone, I mean, if you ask anyone, no one will tell you कि did you watch this film on OTT? Everyone will talk about आपने ये series देखी क्या? So people will talk about that. We in India already had 1,000+ channels, which is like regional to realities to movies, everything from sports to everything. You are getting those Indian content as well as the global content with rewind, forward, and pause button. That's what OTT is doing with you. But here comes the point that the content side, if you look at the value chain of cinema exhibition, it is just not exhibit. We are exhibitors, we are traders. We are showing someone else content. So if you look at the content side of the people who are getting 20-25% of their cost of production recovered before the OTT era from satellite and the other revenue stream, and they were relying around 75 to 80% on the cinema exhibition or theater business. Now that number has gone to 40 to 50%, in some cases even 60%. So what happens? The content maker is getting incentive to make more number of content. Let's look at, for an example, for us, everything which comes from West is a Hollywood film, right? But now what is happening? OTT is giving you Mexican content. It is giving you Spanish content. I mean, कल के दिन को वो Money Heist के professor की कोई film आ जाएगी, it will be at least a 50 crore business in India, because he established that character. So we will see a lot of international content coming in India. That's going to be the positive side. And if you look at the other side, Hollywood films, which basically generate 55 to 60% of their business from overseas market, and their 40-45% business comes from the domestic market, which is North America. The change I see is that Indian content is also traveling across borders. So apart from the traditional Indian diaspora spaces, which is Middle East, UK, North America, Australia, New Zealand, isko chhod ke bhi you have the Eastern Europe, the Latin America, there we see a lot of Indian content going and releasing their content maker releasing their films. This will enhance their revenue again. So if the content maker get more confidence, he makes more number of content, he has more money, his pie becomes bigger, he will make more content, he will make more quality content. So I think for us, digital to cinema, we can't do much except for selling those experience which people were missing, and we are working towards that. But the OTT, it's a digital medium of watching the content which will eventually fuel the consumption of videos more, and we believe that you will come back to cinema, which is the best form of watching the content and videos. So that's what our mid to long term study.
Chaitanya?
Yeah, so as
how's digital helping you in your business to get people into your
Right. So
physical
we
stores?
are, as I was telling earlier, we are a digital first brand, and we are building our entire offline thesis based on our learnings and customer behaviors, what we've seen digitally. So the macro trend of digital is going to stay. It's really about the seamless experience, how you are going to leverage on it. So I'll give you a few examples, right? In our coffee bars, a Slay coffee bar customer enters, they can just scan digital QR codes, open the menu on their phone, order, wherever they are in the store. So the whole idea of making it completely seamless for people to discover, choose whatever they want to order, and it's going to, make it so seamless and more hassle-free. So customers obviously are loving that experience. Similarly, I think a lot of recommendations. We have a AI recommendation on which kind of coffees that suits you while you are in the store as well. So how do you really bring the existing digital behaviors of the customers to make their experience even in the stores to the next level? So I think that's a tremendous opportunity that we all as brands can leverage on. And technology is just going to get better, and the behaviors are going to get stronger. And bringing that seamless experience to give the experience of the customer, in terms of either reducing the wait times, enhancing their, engagement with the brand, even in the stores. They discover the brand online, they shop offline. Or they discover the brand offline, they're going back and, ordering online. So I think it's just very interesting times in terms of how do we kind of bring it all together as a seamless, digital experience is really, even in the F&B, I think that's going to be the next big trend that we are actually excited about.
Yeah. Quickly, Abhishek, are you totally relying on the retailers to do something to come into the properties that you are developing, or you as a developer are also thinking of doing something in digital so that it enables people or, energizes them to come to your properties?
So one of the things that we're doing as in our malls is that we are getting the awareness out there through the digital channels.
Okay.
I think that was not there earlier. People used to be clueless before they reached the mall that what exactly is happening in the mall. So one of the things is obviously all the social media channels, they will always have the offers from all the brands on the mall page. All the mall handles will talk about the brands, what they're doing. Digitally, we make everyone aware about what are the events that we're doing. So ours are primarily neighborhood centers who are actually part community centers because they want to engage with the catchment, engage with the families living there. So we do normal events. It's not focused on always Diwali and Christmas, and so we do events for children, some sort of study programs. We call fellow musicians to play. We have some courses for ladies who want to start something. So there is, what we've tried to do for getting people there is getting more and more engagement. And all this happens digitally because people get to know us through various our handles online. And I think secondly, what we are now doing is we are creating our mall pages to better talk about what brands we have, what is the circulation that we have, how you can get to, so they exactly know the layout before they enter the mall, and also screens within the mall to tell them, where exactly the corner shops that they might miss are. And now we are implementing technology like heat mapping to exactly see, the customer movement within the mall and how much footfall is actually going and what is the stickiness of each and every brand in the mall, so as to better design, the show windows, the signages, and help people actually reach and get what they want to get. So yeah, I guess, we need physical presence. So only thing digitally we can do is to enable physical presence.
Yeah, so one thing that comes across through all the discussions that we have had is that experience is key. Correct. So either whether it is being done digitally to improve the experience, or you are actually physically doing it in the stores. Now, given this scenario, a lot of talk is happening that the boxed retail is not the preferred mode of this thing, and people are preferring high street retail. So I would really want to know your views on what exactly is it. Because if you talk of high street, some bit of experience is gone because you don't have the air conditioned, controlled environments and all that. You don't have maybe the parking, ease of parking, security, safety, all those things are not there. Or maybe there to a very limited extent. So what are your views? Means what is going to happen going forward from here? Sameer, please.
So for us, we're about 25% of our business is in malls. We've never been mall-forward business because simply, the commercials and economics don't really work out for us. We've got some very good mall partners who've been extremely supportive in the tough period that each one of us has seen. But for us, I think till the time this entire thing goes out of the world, I mean, this pandemic really ends, I think malls will really remain a question mark. Consumer definitely feels safer popping in, popping out, despite the lack of security or other parking facilities that you are seeing. But I think human safety is paramount and far more important than about your car security or anything else. So I think we've experienced almost 90% revenues and footfalls at our high street locations. Malls are, of course, Maharashtra. My backbone is Maharashtra, but Maharashtra malls obviously still are reeling because of government guidelines. But as I see, if you ask me, what do I do crystal gazing 22, 23, I personally feel that the businesses will move into local catchments. And I think our businesses are residential businesses, and we're really not going to build the mall way forward. So I personally think high street is going to be far more progressive. Of course, malls are great, and they will always remain malls. We've just opened the 21st one in Geo Mall. It's a beautiful mall. But I personally feel that the footfall that we are witnessing is far higher and will continue to be higher in high street.
Rajiv?
Yeah, I agree on the fact that our kind of businesses have always been closer to catchment. We've always been almost 20% of our business would come from malls, or I would say local malls and malls, and 80% of our business comes from online. All service-oriented businesses, it's easiest for people not to travel too much, especially salons and beauty or cosmetic. People don't want to travel more than 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers. Mall actually started off in India. I mean, we were part of the launch of malls like in Orbit at some point in time, that it suddenly became a sort of entertainment center and continues to be an entertainment center. To say that in India suddenly mall culture will change, because today Indians are safety conscious to some point. Yeah. Beyond a particular point, we can see that our behaviors have already changed. Like, I mean, two months ago, I would be always with a mask.
Plus we have very short memories.
Yeah, so what happens is that fear that we could see, fear of life in May, is suddenly gone. Nobody's even thinking. Yeah. Right? So what happens is suddenly there will be a rush, and it will start with certain, like I was going to malls somewhere in maybe March, April, and I was sitting there and working on one of the food courts in the mall, and I already could see the change in behavior. 6 people in one place, youngsters having a great time. Niche, there is no customer. On the food court, great customers. Unfortunately, the multiplexes was not on, otherwise there will be customers there also. So I don't think our memories our safety consciousness is very high, and we already know that as of today, there is a mixed message on the third wave. So obviously, if it doesn't really hit, people will suddenly start going back to malls. Our high streets have a lot of pain points today. We don't really have high streets. I mean, he comes from a French brand, and you realize how the high streets are created there. It's a great experience to walk around a high street. In India, that will never happen, at least in the short, medium term.
Absolutely not.
So to say that everything will move into high street, there are not even enough locations to do. The other part that is happening is the disruption of digital versus the mall. So for example, a large part of what I could experience in a mall, I can experience today digitally. So a lot of what I used to go and buy in a mall, I'm buying digitally today. Yeah. So unless malls can up the game, departmental stores can up the game, and all of us can up the game in our own respective experiences, the reason to come in more frequently, as we discussed, may reduce. So our job is make our centers or our businesses an experience-led business. It could be customer service experience, or it could be the product experience, and keep making people visit the place for the experiences. How they buy doesn't matter. You can come to a store, to, for example, a furniture store, experience the entire thing and sit at home and order. Yeah. Like IKEA today, we are ordering from home, but we would love to go to an IKEA center. Same is the case with an interior. I'd like to come and see your furniture in your stores, but I may buy at home, which is there. I mean, simple thing. Ours is a women-dominated business. Almost 80% of our business actually is dominated by women. But the searchability of online starts from 8 o'clock in the evening, goes up to midnight. So what I'm saying is, like men used to do at some point in time after work, come in and do, all women are also searching today. So the mobile phone is kind of been a leveler. So I don't expect a huge shift between saying that mall will not work. Mall economics are already under stress.
Yes.
So that's going to be a big problem for us. But digital is the big disruptor. Online is the big disruptor. And that's really going to, either we participate in it or we look at it as competition. I think depending on how we go, we will be in business or not in business in some time.
Subodh, your views?
Yeah, I think I fully agree that, jury is still out about that. And I also feel that safety may not be the most important consideration, because we will be able to contain, this pandemic. It is already, with all vaccination, even the drugs are coming, etc. But there's so many other factors which might decide, so not just the safety part. For example, malls may have to differentiate substantially and become a destination kind of a thing. I agree with one thing which I see in a lot of categories, that now customers do not want to travel very, very long distance. And it has happened pre-pandemic also. So I think you need to be closer to the customer. To that extent, high street possibly will be important. But I think malls can also differentiate. So people do want to go for just not shopping, but also entertainment. So there are certain specific values which are delivered only by mall. And if you continue to deliver those values, I think mall will also definitely be there. And I think the whole retail concept might change. So for example, click and collect is getting very important. So in that case, the store has to be closer to you. You're not going to travel 1.5 and 2 hours journey to collect some stuff. For example, DMart. So many stores are required for click and collect. Many of the people, like in US, etc., the normal store itself acts as a click and collect. Like IKEA, you can do that, if you want to do click and collect. So to that extent, I think retail concept will also play a role. If you want to create only the experience store, then I think the mall might be still important. But you want to use it for click and collect and quick purchase, etc., then I think high street will also will play a role. Standalone departmental stores might find it difficult to survive, but I wouldn't, put my money on whether high street or mall, which is going to play the major role.
I'll just add on to what he's saying. I think the mall operators will need to really up the experience. And I'll give you a recent example. I keep going back to Geo World Drive. I think the first drive-in is opened there. Yeah. So that is what is getting people, and that's what will drive footfalls for a completely new experience. And then people will end up shopping, eating, etc. Yeah. They've also opened the first pet-friendly, area. So, I mean, these is forward thinking. It might be a little evolved for India, but I think this is what will create a differentiator in times ahead.
Yeah. Okay, our time is up, so I'll quickly sum up. So what we are basically saying is that as long as retailers, malls evolve and start giving differentiated experiences or comprehensive experiences, they will survive. 2, digital is definitely a disruptor, and in many ways and across industries, it is disrupting the businesses. And 3, we are still not, very clear whether the malls or boxed retail versus high street retail, which one is going to fare really, really well going forward. So any questions from you people, please, you can put it up. No one? Great. So thank you so much, gentlemen.